Morning. It's a beautiful day today. Really nice weather we're having. I had some interesting experiences I thought I'd share with you. So, just my car broke down. It actually didn't break down. I took it to Honda because it had an airbag recall. It was a recall of a recall. So they've got the airbag in, which actually I had to come back for. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't like I just went in there. And then the second time I went in, they actually had the airbag. The first time they didn't have it. And of course, they find something wrong with my car every time I go in there because that's what they do. And it costs a lot. I mean, my car is 15 years old, so things start going out. So it's legitimate. I mean, it was the steering rack was leaking. So Honda, they want to charge you like $1,400 for that repair. And I told the guy, I said, I'm going to wait. I'm going to research this because I just can't do it. So I came home and I drove it around for a couple days, and I talked to my dad about it. He's like, "Oh, just let it leak, it's just let it leak." And he had a bad experience with one of his cars where it was leaking a little bit of oil, and he went in to try to get it fixed, and they messed it up and made it worse, and it was never right after that. So he had a bad experience with that. But this was something different. This was my steering, that steers the car, and you don't want to mess with that. So I was like, well, I need to get it fixed. But then I remembered I had a friend at work who her husband is a mechanic. So I called him, and he said, yeah, I can fix it. And I took it up to his shop and dropped it off. This is last Wednesday. So I dropped off the car. He did the repair, and he did it for a lot cheaper than Honda. And so I was pretty happy, It still needed to have the alignment done, and he knew someone that could do the alignment for cheap. So I was like, okay, I'm going to save a lot of money on this situation. I felt real good. Come home, and I'm driving the car, and everything's fine. And I go to work Friday. I get off work Friday, and I can barely steer the steering wheel. I'm like, oh my God, this guy screwed it up, And that was my first reaction was, oh, I've been had. That feeling where you're like, oh, I've been had. It's a bad feeling. And I think we've all had a bad experience where we felt like we got ripped off or someone took advantage of us. And I was like, oh my God, this guy didn't know what he was doing. And I was real stressed about it. I mean, but of course I was exhausted from working. Work was really bad that day. I got out of work late. It was a horrible day of work. And I had to go to the auto parts store and buy power steering fluid to put in it, and the power steering fluid wasn't actually leaking like I thought it was. But anyway, at that time I thought it was because like why would the steering not be steering, but it was something else. But I didn't know that because I'm not a mechanic. I don't know. I know a little bit about cars, but not very much at all. So I call him, and he's like, oh, okay, no problem. I'm going to take care of it. And can you bring it in tomorrow? And I was like, no, I'm at work. I can't. So I was going to be stranded. I was basically going to be driving a car that had no steering, or the steering wasn't right. I mean, I could still drive it, but it was very difficult. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to drive this car all weekend because I had to work 3 days in a row. Of course, right. It's right when you have a big stretch of work. So I get I come home, and I'm just berating myself. I'm just absolutely berating myself. Just all this negative self-talk, basically, where, I'm an idiot. I shouldn't have done that. That was my mistake. I should never have trusted this guy. I shouldn't have tried to be cheap. I shouldn't have tried to save money. I should have just paid Honda. And I just beat myself up. So I finished my weekend at work. My wife's mother just moved back. My mother-in-law just moved back here from Hawaii, so she had a car, and she doesn't drive hardly at all. So we borrowed her car. We drove over, got her car, and of course this is after my grueling, horrible day at work. I had to drive over, get her car, but we had two cars now, so I was able to drive my wife's car to work, and my wife drove my mother-in-law's car. So it worked out really perfect. I mean, it was just like really, really lucky. So Monday, I take the car into the mechanic, and I'm still just like, oh my God. I'm almost thinking in my mind, I should probably just take this up to Honda and just have them fix it, because he probably screwed something up, and he's just going to screw it up more and charge me more money. But then I was like, you know what? I'm on this ride. I'm on this roller coaster ride, and it sucks. You know how you get on a ride and you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have got on this ride? Well, once you're on it, you don't have a choice but to ride it to the end. And there is a point to all this stuff I'm telling you. So I take it to him, I take it back, and he's just the nicest guy. He's so sweet. And he's, I could tell he honestly was like, he's like, let me look at it, Jeff. We're going to get it taken care of. And he calls me back almost immediately. And he's like, okay, it's the pump. It's the power steering pump. He said, what happens is when I put the new power steering rack in, because it was new, it put a lot of pressure on the old one. And it wasn't, working properly. He said, I'm going to fix it. So I leave it with him. And I had this epiphany on the way. Before he called me, I had this epiphany. So I'm walking back to my wife's work, which was only 2 miles away, so I was able to walk. I'm walking back to her work to get her car so I can, have a vehicle to pick up my kids. And I had this realization in my mind. I was like, oh my God, I attacked myself. I had literally attacked myself, like mentally, which is kind of a form of mental illness, right? My body attacked itself, because that's what ulcerative colitis is. It's when your body overreacts, your immune system overreacts. So here my body overreacts to the foods I'm eating or stress or whatever, and I start having these issues. But how can I expect my body not to attack itself when I am attacking myself? I'm attacking myself with my own mind. I'm using my mind against myself. And I was like, oh my God, that was the point of this whole thing, right? And another thing that was cool about this whole experience is during the experience, when I was having all this frustration and anger, and not anger, but self-anger and all this doubt, it was almost like all of this stuff was being brought to the surface so I could observe it. And this is a very important spiritual principle, because God doesn't just remove the negativity from us. God wants us to, we have free will, right? We could have these negativities come up, and we could just say, oh, that's just my personality. That's just who I am. I'm a piece of shit. I don't deserve anything good. We could go on and on like that, right? But because I've been doing this spiritual approach that I've been doing, I saw it differently this time. I saw it like, oh, I'm being shown the things that I can release. So what I did is, instead of, at that moment, I just said a prayer to God. I said, God, thank you for showing me these things that I need to release. And can you please help me release them? Can you take this from me so that I can be closer to you? And that's really what it is. And so instead of these things just being a thing where you go, oh, it's just karma, oh, I'm a bad person, oh, I don't deserve, you're using this to say, oh, thank you for showing me that. Thank you for, yes, it still sucks. Yes, it's, it's inconvenient, we all know what it's like. I call it car karma. We all know what it's like. Nothing's worse than having your car go down, especially when you live in Texas and we live out kind of in the country area. There's no buses, there's no transportation. You're in serious trouble. I'd almost in a situation where I would have had to rent a car if it wouldn't have been for my mother-in-law. And so anyway, it was just a tremendous lesson. It was just it was awesome. I felt like all this stuff got worked up to the surface so that I could see it. It was exposed. Because if you don't know what it is, if you don't know what your weaknesses are, how can you possibly fix it? You just keep running these delusions and these crazy, like I said, it's mental illness, pure and simple. And we all more or less suffer from mental illness. I think you almost have to if you're part of this society. I mean, obviously there's saintly people who have cleared out their stuff, and and the cool thing about it is once you do that, the reward is you develop a closer connection to God. You get be closer and closer to God, and then maybe God can use us for a higher purpose and to whatever. I mean, who knows, But anyway, I thought that was interesting, and I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was pretty profound, and it was kind of a healing thing for me. So anyway, this week I'm doing like more or less a carnivore diet. Since Monday, I've been doing carnivore, and it's kind of, I haven't craved any carbs or anything. It's been kind of good. I've been eating pretty much regular, I guess you could say, but I can definitely feel it in my gut. I could feel like, you can feel it, it's still there. It's not totally inflamed, but it's still sore like a bruise. And so I'm going to do this carnivore thing. I don't know. I might do it for a whole week. I might do it for a couple. My daughter's got a birthday party. We're going to celebrate her 16th birthday on Thursday, so I'll probably eat regular food Thursday, but it's been helpful switching back to the carnivore. And I'm going to meet with this guy tomorrow. My trainer that I do the meditation with remotely, well, he gave me the number of a guy who I can go to his house and do this one-on-one meditation. And what they do is they sit across from you, and they're able to clean you. It's a cleaning, but it's in person, and I think it'll be a little more powerful than doing it remotely. And so I'll let you know how that goes. I'm kind of excited about it. I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but I just had this, it's just been such a year, and I've had so much going on that I didn't want to try to add any more stuff to my plate. So I'll let you know how that goes. I'm excited about it. I mean, I just say this, this heartfulness path it's been just totally amazing. And I feel so blessed, because I never would have seen something like this, this deal that happened with my car, as just this wonderful gift. All this negativity came up. I would have just felt guilty about it, or I would have just felt like, oh my God, I'm just so weak. I'm, here I am, a grown man, and I'm having these outbursts. But what it really is it's showing you, because God isn't going to usurp our free will, but God can show us when we expand in our mind, when we expand in our consciousness, we start to see things more clearly. And that is that divine uplifting our consciousness. And it's just a beautiful thing. It's just so powerful. And I feel blessed. But anyway, I hope y'all have a good day.